Hello and welcome to the Rested podcast. My name's Mark Selby. I love the theatre of travel, discovering the stories of journeys and learning how people use their travel time. Dusk was falling as I headed to the station in California. I knew my train was badly delayed. I entered the Art Deco waiting room with its wood-beam ceiling, friezes painted on the walls, and comfortable wooden bench seats. The station manager was sat behind the tiled ticket counter's glass barrier. 10 of us were waiting for the last and only train. All sat upright, as metal armrests stopped anyone lying on the bench seats. There was silence as people scrolled screens or dozed. When the information screen showed a further delay, the manager emerged to announce he was locking the external doors of the waiting room. If we needed to step outside, just one door could be opened from the inside, but we'd have to knock on the door to request re-entry. We'd only be allowed in if we could show our ticket for the train. I'd never been locked in a station before. Passengers fidgeted as concern and frustration grew. Some made phone calls, others just looked at the walls. I asked the manager why the train was delayed. He replied someone had been hit by the train in front of ours. The resulting crime scene required emergency services. I then asked why he'd locked the doors. He smiled and suggested I looked out of the window. It was now dark outside. The platform lighting was poor, but as my eyes adjusted, I could see figures moving slowly in the shadows. The station platform was at street level with open access. Anyone could step onto it. Who were the strange, zombie-like figures out there? Were they real, or was my imagination running away with me? To be honest, I've never felt so safe in a station waiting room. I shared my surprise with a fellow passenger. At first, she was guarded, just acknowledging my comment. But when I said, looking at America from overseas, it's difficult to understand what's happening in this country, she glanced around her, then agreed. She seemed as nervous about who might be among us, inside, as outside. She discreetly shared her concern at the disunited state of America, the anger and the violence. She lived on Bainbridge Island near Seattle. I learnt how Bainbridge Islanders look out for each other, especially if someone needs medical attention there. She'd taken the train south at very short notice to see her 100-year-old mother for the last time. Another passenger offered his condolences, and a conversation began. The man was a Spanish language teacher and musician, heading to an interview in San Francisco, his birthplace. He told us how expensive his 1-week stay in a hospital had been just after the pandemic. It almost ruined him. Conversation flowed around the waiting room, possibly triggered by the fear of what lay outside or just the pleasure of civil discourse. A young woman knocked on the door. A passenger got up to open it, but the manager appeared quickly. With her ticket checked, she joined us. Later, a large, bearded man tried to open the door and enter. Once again, the manager appeared and requested his ticket. Searching on his phone, he eventually found it and joined us. It took a perceived threat and a long delay to start those conversations, but they were a pleasure to hear and participate in. Our train eventually arrived. We left our secure lit room and stepped onto the dark platform outside. The threat of strangers in the shadows felt real, but also increasingly ridiculous. Yes, there might have been someone begging for money, or worse, outside, but the notion of dangerous zombies awaiting our departure was absurd. A figment of the imagination, seeded by fiction. Nevertheless, we stayed close to our fellow passengers outside. The manager drove down the platform in a golf cart with strong headlamps, telling us where to stand for our carriages. The warm welcome of the train staff was appreciated, and the earlier, slow-moving figures in the shadows were nowhere to be seen. Yes, there are idiots and criminals out there, and people who think antisocial behaviour is normal, but they're the insane minority. The rest of us are the majority. We look after each other as best we can. We have a responsibility to call out, record, and report incidents. As the author Thomas Mann wrote, tolerance becomes a crime when applied to evil. Our train headed north towards California's coastal redwoods. They can grow to an astonishing 100 meters in height, but their entire root system is less than 4 meters underground. The roots spread out horizontally, intertwining with other trees' roots to share support and share nutrients. The trees function as a community. Each tree is dependent on the others to withstand wind, earthquakes, fire, storms, and drought, depending on each other to survive and thrive. And as travellers, we are not alone. We are a community too. Of course, the railways do have a rich history of ghost stories, tales of phantom trains and people that appear on the anniversaries of historic disasters, the trains supposedly seen entering tunnels but never emerging, or crossing long abandoned bridges, and the passengers that can only be seen from outside the train. The ghost story that makes me smile is Stockholm's Silver Train. This supposedly travels when the other metro services have stopped running. Some say the train is on an endless loop, others that it only stops at one deserted station. In that case, I guess the advantage is that you always know when to get off. The legend began in the 1960s when the Stockholm Metro bought an aluminium train to test and evaluate. The existing trains were painted green. The new, unpainted train had a different layout inside, but was run on the network. If the public didn't seem bothered by it, the Stockholm Metro figured they could build a cheaper fleet of trains. But Stockholm's passengers didn't like it and avoided it. Even though it was used as a backup during rush hours, the Silver Train was never very popular and had few passengers. It became the Ghost Train. And a good ghost train story really needs a ghost station. And coincidentally, a new station was under construction when the Silver Train was being tested. But the construction was abandoned and the station wasn't used. A perfect home for the ghost train. In other cities, we find ghost buses. You might recall the invisible buses of Barcelona in episode 12. These buses do run, but they've been removed from travel apps at the request of the city to enable Barcelona residents to ride on buses that aren't overcrowded with visiting tourists. Other cities are taking a similar approach. Returning to Stockholm, many stories were created about the Silver Train, its endless journeys or single stop, yet the train can still be seen at the Stockholm Police Academy. It's used to train police officers on how to deal with crimes on metro trains. Similar training facilities exist around the world. And just like California's coastal redwoods, we and our fellow passengers are a community. We aren't alone. We have strangers around us that look out for us, and we have trained officers ready to help. We all have a role to play. Tolerance does indeed become a crime when applied to evil. Report, record, and raise attention when needed. Enjoy your safe travels and adventures. Thanks for listening to the Rested Podcast. Please subscribe for details of new episodes and tell your friends. I look forward to reading and sharing your travel stories. Please email restedpodcast@gmail.com. And my thanks to everyone that has contributed to Rested so far. Enjoy your travel.